Hello, you're watching Context Live on Air. I'm Volkan Amishov here to ask the right questions in pursuit of illuminating answers. President Ilham Aliyev's latest state visit to Kazakhstan earlier this week marked the 20th anniversary of the 2005 agreement on strategic partnership and alliance between these two countries. Described by President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev as a visit of critical significance, it culminated in the signing of 15 agreements spanning connectivity, infrastructure, digital transformation, green energy, and many other fields of mutual interest. Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are, after all, two largest economies of their respective regions, the South Caucasus and Central Asia. They are also active members of the Organization of Turkic States and key pivotal players in the broader Middle Corridor geography. There was a particular focus on the necessity of raising bilateral trade to $1 billion, addressing transport bottlenecks, and deepening strategic coordination in logistics and energy. President Aliyev also visited Alem Research and Development Center, or Alem.ai, a cutting-edge hub advancing Turkic language modeling and artificial intelligence with potential impact across the Turkic world. Beyond the bilateral agenda between these two nations, a wider regional framework is clearly emerging, or rather has emerged. A kind of Central Asian Caspian axis with Uzbekistan firmly within the frame. And incidentally, today, Uzbekistan's President Shavkat Mirziyoyev was in Brussels, attending the signing of an enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement with the European Union, replacing the old arrangement, which was signed back in 1996 and entered into force in 1999. And in this context, of course, for Central Asia and Uzbekistan in particular, as a constituent element of that region, any meaningful connectivity or functional relationship with the EU must necessarily involve the South Caucasus, where Azerbaijan plays a central role. Joining me now to reflect on the Azerbaijani-Kazakhstan partnership, on the state visit of President Aliyev, and sort of throw a retrospective glance at what happened on Monday and Tuesday, the broader implications of that very meeting, and also, of course, EU-Uzbekistan agreement. Nurbulat Nushumbayev, professor at Turan University, based in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and Ibrahim Mehmedli, head of the Turkic Western Engagement Initiative at the Danube Institute in Budapest, Hungary. Well, welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Good evening, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good evening to you both, indeed. Nurbulat, my first question will be addressed to you. As I'm sure you know, I was on the ground in Astana earlier this week, covering, reporting on and analyzing President Aliyev's state visit. But two sides issued a joint declaration on the 20th anniversary of that 2005 agreement. They did not sign a new treaty, new agreement, but they signed 15 agreements of critical vitality, as I mentioned earlier, the spanning connectivity, digital realm, and so forth. How significantly you think has this state visit improved the scale and depth of bilateral interaction between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan?
That's a very important question. Definitely, all of the media watched the state visit of Ilham Aliyev to Astana. So I would like to divide into two parts the importance of this visit. The first one is the regional aspect, because we already have established the strong foundation for the bilateral relations, as well as Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan has a relations at the level of multilateralism at the international institution level. So the recent Aliyev visit to Astana is important. For the first time, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan having common vision on the connectivity issues, in particular middle corridor aspects. On the second side, now we are entering to this next stage of the bilateral relations, not only focusing investment, logistics, but as well as we are focusing on the cultural aspect, which is very important, as well as educational, scientific, in the field of technology and the digitalization. So new spheres, I think, in the recent visit got a new dimension, new aspects. Also, this meeting was very important in the period of the latest geopolitical escalation in the Eurasian landmark. So it shows us to what extent Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan has a common vision on the connecting between Asia and Europe for the long term. So therefore, beside bilateral agreements, this shows us two nations which has common identity, shares the same vision regarding the one of the modern, one of the longest logistical hub from Asia to Europe.
Thank you, Nurbulat. Ibrahim, I was there in the room where the remarks by President Aliyev and President Tokayev were made. And when President Tokayev described, he gave his evaluation of the trip, he used with a particular emphasis the word critical. He said that this is a trip of critical significance. And Nurbulat earlier reflected on the bilateral, regional, and even wider Eurasian significance of this trip. What would be your evaluation? It's a state visit, of course, but what do you think President Tokayev meant when he used the word critical with a particular emphasis?
Well, as you have mentioned, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are respectively the biggest and strongest economies of their respective regions. And these countries are both critical as well together with Uzbekistan for the stability and smooth economic operations in a whole wider region of Central Asia and Caucasus, which is the connecting region in the greater Eurasian landmass. As Nurbulat earlier mentioned, the Eurasian continent, the region itself, has many different conflicts arising around the Turkic countries, and this is especially important for Turkic countries to coordinate further closer together. And of course, if we are talking about coordination and greater cooperation between the Turkic countries, it's impossible to think about it without Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan coordinating together for their respective regions. And I believe with the Gabala declaration of the OTS, which has been signed a month ago, with the agreements that have been put on the table on greater economic coordination and even possibly starting the military trainings of the OTS, as His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev has proposed, it is indeed very critical for these two countries to coordinate and cooperate together in the energy, in transportation, in security. And as we have seen, the Azerbaijani and Kazakh relations are on the level of strategic ally level. And I do believe that further this will rise even more to even the allied relation status, because Azerbaijan is already ally with Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan ally with Kazakhstan, and the last part will be the Azerbaijan-Kazakhstan part, which will bring the strong trilateral for the Caucasus and Central
Trilateral alliance, so to speak. Thank you, Ibrahim. Yes. Very grateful to you for your analysis. Nurbulat, trade volume, trade turnover between the two countries, I think stands at currently $547 million US, an ambition to raise bilateral trade volume from its current level to $1 billion US has been mentioned. Is this a realistic goal in the short to medium term?
It's very hard to say that's achievable within the months or by the end of the year. But I see a great potential in the trade volume for the two reasons. The first reason, of course, is using highly advanced technologies and making a way effective the ports, Aktau Port from our side and Aliyat Port from Baku from Azerbaijan side. So integrating latest technologies and AI-driven data management system surely will accelerate the total volume of the trades. The second thing is, this year Kazakhstan was able to open around 700 kilometers trade railways, which connects Moyen to Dostok. Dostok is a border with China, with the central Kazakhstan. So what does it mean? It means the extent of the middle corridor and the period of the sending products from Asia, from China to Europe will decrease, and the quality will, of course, the quality and the speed will increase. So therefore, such a kind of infrastructure which has been developed in the last 3 to 4 years, I think has a great influence to span up, to increase the trade volume between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Because if we look at from the map, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, which is on the both sides of the Caspian Sea, still we are not reached our full potential. There are lots of potential which hasn't been used. Sometimes it's underestimated. So the recent visit, also the latest development state visit of Tokayev to Baku, to Gabala, and many other projects within the Turkic state organization, I think they have created precondition to uh, spin up, to increase the trade volume bilateral as well as uh, within the Central Asia and the South Caucasus region. The second aspect is, I think within the Zangezur corridor, the latest tensions is also influenced to increase the trade volume between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan for the long term. So therefore, for short, I can say 1 billion target is fully achievable and it has a strong emphasis, strong some facts which we can achieve within the upcoming periods of time.
And as part of the wider economic interaction and wide interaction, digital connectivity is also absolutely key. Digital Silkway connecting Akhtar with Sumgait, the cyber optic, the connection through the Caspian Sea was mentioned a couple of times. A couple of agreements have been actually attained to that effect. During the visit, much emphasis was made on this particular point. And what would you say, Ibrahim? What is the wider significance of this project, Digital Silkway, in terms of Caspian regional integration, and perhaps, if I may go as far as to suggest, digital independence for the wider Turkic world?
Well, we live in the current world where digital security plays a stronger and stronger role day by day, and it is very vital for the countries of region to coordinate. Not only when we talk about transportation or energy exports, it's very important to coordinate, of course, in the digital sphere as well. When we talk about smooth operations, we have to know that all of these smooth operations run through the digital processes. And if we talk about the smoothness of digital processes, then all the countries in the region have to have a system of their own, through which they will coordinate. When we talk about the processes in the middle corridor, in Trans-Caspian corridor, all of them, along with the land transportation, will also have to have the coordination, and digital coordination, digital systems will be the key for that coordination. And hence, I believe that is critical that the countries of region are joining together in all spheres, and as two indispensable countries for the Trans-Caspian route, it is very important that all of these processes will run together. And this includes not only the just transportation through Trans-Caspian corridor, but also the future cable lines that will pass through the Caspian Sea and then through Black Sea, eventually reaching Hungary in Europe, bringing electricity. So all of these processes will have to have the smooth digital operation, and is very critical for countries to cooperate in this field. And yeah, I believe this is critical for that.
Nurbulat, digital self-sufficiency or sovereignty as a subject has been discussed there in the context of, during my communication with different officials and experts, in the context of Kazakhstan's ability to exercise this geopolitical balancing act in Central Asia as a pivotal actor. And when it comes to self-sufficiency, of course, emphasis has been on the reality, on the exigency of not relying on anybody. You should be self-sufficient, you should have a number of partners, and none of your partners should be indispensable. You should always have alternatives. And in that particular context, energy is a very interesting area to explore, of course. As I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kazakhstan exports 5% of its oil resources to Western markets via the Caspian Sea, via Azerbaijan. And in 2024, I think over 1.5 million tons of Kazakh crude were transported through Azerbaijan's infrastructure. But so we talk about only 5%, which is not infinitesimal, but a limited to the portion of all that. And the rest, as I understand, 80% goes to Russia, and 17% goes to China. What is the place of Azerbaijan in terms of Kazakhstan's energy export capabilities to ensure that noble goal of being able to be completely self-sufficient in order to execute this geopolitical balancing act?
Definitely. So, the latest geopolitical shift in Central Asia, let's say in wider in Eurasia, definitely influencing to reconsideration Kazakhstan foreign policy. But if we look at to these cases, we never make separate the energy politics from the foreign politics. All the time, it's a part of wider foreign policy agendas. So this year, 2025, by Kazakhstan, so 85% Chinese products, which experts, which sends from Asia to Europe went by Kazakhstan. But if you look historically, Kazakhstan before the start of the Russia-Ukrainian conflict was heavily relied upon the Russian territories to send its gas and energies to export energy to Europe. But the situation changed since actively increasing the number of sanctions against Russia. Kazakhstan to start reconsidering its logistic routes. So therefore, I think it's one of the reasons why Kazakhstan is trying to find an alternative route by the Caspian Seas. So therefore, my vision is Kazakhstan energy politics, it's a part of its wider foreign policy. So we call them multi-vector foreign policy agenda. They try to hedge within the great powers, but at the same time, this transformative period of time for Kazakhstan, it's a kind of wake-up call to find alternative trade routes, logistic routes, in order to keep a balance in the region. The first. The second, to decrease the reliance upon the single vector, which has been considered by the northern corridors. So therefore, I see a great potential when it comes to Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan geographically, it's a bridge between the Europe and the Central Asia as a heart of the South Caucasus. So therefore, definitely there is some critics which think, well, everything, it can be said well on the documents, but the time shows up. So therefore, I think having a common vision, having a stable advancing, all those signed agreements will provide a path to the brighter future between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Nurbulat. Ibrahim, that common vision involves not just Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, but other Central Asian actors, countries. One of them is Uzbekistan. A number of times during my discussion there was a particular focus on the trilateral format involving Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is the largest country of the Central Asia in terms of its population, I think 35 million population. In Uzbekistan, bigger than Kazakhstan population-wise, but considerably smaller territory-wise. And today, we'll be coming to that a bit later, the trip visit of President Mirziyoyev to Brussels and that fundamental agreement signed therein. And I think it was late August when I was in Avaza in Turkmenistan, when there was a trilateral meeting involving Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, which is another trilateral dimension. What do you make of this trilateral format? There is also a trilateral format involving Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan and Turkey, for example. Do you think all of these trilateral formats are designed in a way that should kind of transmogrify into one bigger format involving these countries? What is the potentiality therein?
Well, thank you very much. This is a very important question because Azerbaijan has been involved in trilateral formats for the last decade, more than a decade of its foreign policy, the last policy-making years. And the latest ones, of course, as you have mentioned, it's Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Azerbaijan, the one that was this year in August, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. What's crucial here, the answer lies in the multilateralism of all of these countries, and this gives better foreign policy options and coordination between the countries. And if we talk about greater coordination of the Silk Road region countries, which is Caucasus plus Central Asia, here Azerbaijan, as Nurbulat mentioned, is the bridge between the European Union and Central Asian markets, and also between Turkey and Central Asia. So it is critical for Azerbaijan to coordinate with those countries, and for smoother operations, it's very needed to have case-by-case integration of all the systems. And one of the things about trilaterals, over the last 10 years, they have shown great durability and great progress in achieving significant milestones. For example, in the case of Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, it is about the Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan railway to link it further through Turkmenistan, eventually to Azerbaijan, and later to European market. When it is Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, this involves even more projects. This is about the energy of Kazakhstan in export to European Union. It's about the Trans-Caspian corridor, because those two countries, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, have critical routes in the middle corridor and the Trans-Caspian part of it, which both pass through Azerbaijan, eventually through Georgia or Turkey to Europe. And of course, the latest agreements on the Caspian Sea and Black Sea cable lines, which involved all three of these countries, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. So when we talk about specific projects, integration of these projects into the whole system that's happening in the Silk Road region, the trilateral formats have shown their durability and their effectiveness in managing all the projects. So trilateral formats, I believe they will persist. They will lead eventually to the C6 format, which we speak about. More and more we see it appearing, because we usually talk about C5 format between the Central Asian states. But I believe, and many more and more I hear from the analysts, that the C5 is actually C6 with Azerbaijan, and hence those trilaterals eventually will bring to the greater C6 format, and then later towards the greater OTS cooperation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ibrahim, for explaining this evolving landscape and all the compartments of it. Finally, Nurbulat, let's bring Brussels into the frame, to the equation. Just today, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev of Uzbekistan was in the Belgian capital, in the capital of the European Union, so to speak, for the purpose of signing the enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement with the EU. This one replaces, as I understand, the one which was signed back in 1996 and the one that entered into force in 1999. How significant an upgrade is this agreement for Uzbekistan? And is it perfectly in line with the wider Central Asia plus EU format and agreements attained in April of this year, when the first ever summit known as EU plus Central Asia took place?
Yes, this year in April we have witnessed a summit in Samarkand, which was very important, initiated a huge amount of packet economic investment to Central Asian countries. If you look at since early 2000, we see European Union actually prefers to have bilateral relations with Central Asian countries rather than region to region. So therefore we may see European Union with Kazakhstan, European Union with other Central Asian countries. But however, the good thing is, in the last decade, Central Asia was able to fully integrate C+ format. It's not international organization, it's not institution, but it's a diplomatic platform. So within this framework, we have seen number of participants, including Russia and China, United States, European Union. So therefore, the Shavkat Mirziyoyev visit to Belgium, it's not only can be seen as a step with between the two nation states, rather it should be considered as a Central Asia plus European Union. Why? The first reason is, for European Union, Uzbekistan is matters within the Central Asian objective. Because for European Union, the energy deficiency, energy deficits is becoming, also Central Asia becoming one of the important hotspot for Europe to import the energy sector. So therefore, surely the Mirziyoyev visit can be considered perfectly well within the prism of Central Asia plus European Union connectivity. So anyhow, we see some strong emphasis in the last few years, like regional integration with Central Asia. As my colleague mentioned it, also within the expert community, we have seen C5+1 format is becoming C6. So Azerbaijan is becoming not as an external factor, but as an inclusion factor within the Central Asian region. So to sum up my vision is, sure, European Union is very important for Central Asian countries to sending their natural resources, to export natural resources by the roads, by the middle corridors. Within this case, the European Union vision is all the time is interlinked with other Central Asian states too.
Thank you, Ibrahim. My last question to you. Your reflections, I would like to hear your reflections on the self-same subject, with a particular emphasis on the impact on Azerbaijan, which is a connector between Central Asia and Europe.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, as Nurmalat has mentioned, this agreement has not only the importance between Uzbekistan and EU bilateral relations, but in general framework for the Central Asia and EU relations. Because as we know, Kazakhstan already, for example, has the EPCA, and now Uzbekistan also has, starting from today. So more countries in Central Asia seemingly will join this format, and joining this format means not only the political coordination, it obviously means greater investments from the European Union, greater opening of the businesses of the European Union to Central Asia and vice versa. And when we talk about the greater investments, we look into the critical projects, right? We look into the corridors, we look into the energy supply lines, we look into green energy supply lines, which are very important. The Paris Agreement was mentioned in the bilateral talks today. And if we look into the green energy systems, it lies in the critical minerals. And if we want to get critical minerals to the EU from Central Asia, then we have to have railways which go to each of these facilities, right, to the fields of critical minerals. Uzbekistan has is already processing more than 30 type and has the capability to process more than 100 types of critical minerals. Kazakhstan has also very great potential. So here, if we talk about cooperation between European Union and Central Asia, all of this will have to pass through Azerbaijan. And it means that all of these railway networks, which are already coming through Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan to the European Union, will have to be further will have to have further investment and integration and coordination. So if we talk about greater EU Central Asia cooperation, there is a need for strategic partnership also between European Union and Azerbaijan, because it's impossible to have the trade when you have two of the most sanctioned countries to the north and to the south, and the only safe passage through Azerbaijan for a cheaper trade with Central Asia and European Union without actually involving it on the strategic partnership level. And this includes also wider connection to Hungary, because when we talk about the Trans-Caspian corridor, all of it leads eventually to Budapest, because Kazakhstan and Hungary are building joint terminal in Budapest, and those terminals are placed in Alat, in the critical nodes, which is the border between Kazakhstan and China, in Aktau, in Alat, and in Budapest, which means we already have this middle corridor through Trans-Caspian corridor already formed, and it's already operating. So European Union in this respect, I believe, should pay greater attention for greater investment as well in Azerbaijan and Hungary and Turkey as well as the greater nodes that are linking to Central Asian markets. And Central Asian market is booming and it's ready for the investment. And if European Union doesn't take enough action, it will be the other players which will take this action, because we see from China, we saw the US investment, which already invested 12 billion in one day during the UNGA summit.
Yes,
so European Union needs action, and it goes through Azerbaijan and its own infrastructure.
Indeed, a number of very important critical deals were signed during on the margins of the 80s UNGA. We remember that was Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan in particular. Nurbuladin Shumbayev and Ibrahim Ahmedov, I'm most grateful to both of you for this very interesting discussion. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, with my guest today, we have discussed the Azerbaijani-Kazakhstan cooperation with a retrospective glance at President Ilham Aliyev's state visit to Astana, which took place earlier this week. We reflected on its implications, on the agreements attained therein, and also we considered a wider trilateral framework involving Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. We also naturally reflected on one of the most important developments of this day, the visit by President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, to Brussels, and very important agreements signed therein, which replaced the earlier arrangement. Well, you've been watching Context, and see you very soon indeed.